On today's Join Us in France, wine touring in Beaune in the Burgundy region. This is Join Us in France, episode 128. Bonjour, I'm Annie, and I'm here to tell you about my travel and discovery of France, and also interview listeners who visit France and have great tips to share from their own visits to France. I love France. I was born and raised here. I live in France right now, but in my early 20s, I left to go live in the UK and the US for 20 years altogether. And when I came back, I had to rediscover my own country. And I want to help you understand France better because I, like you, have a passion for travel done right. For show notes and links on this episode, and especially if we said some mysterious French names, and there are a lot of names of wonderful places with very obscure names in this episode, go to joinusinfrance.com/128, the number 128. Today's episode is all about the times when you think to yourself, this is what life is all about. The experiences that move you and make you very happy to be alive. First, we'll hear from Matthew Gamache, who visited Beaune twice with his wife, wants to go back again. And also Jason and Bob, who were there on their honeymoon. Aww. This episode is all about Beaune. It includes wine, but also a lot of things about things you can visit there because it's a beautiful, beautiful place. If you like this episode, you'll also enjoy 3 other episodes on Beaune and the Burgundy region. Episode 98 on a Burgundy wine festival. And also episode 61 on visiting southern Burgundy. And episode 57, which was a general introduction to the region with a local tour guide. And there will be links in the show notes. Don't crash your car, just so you can write it down. You'll see it easily on your app. Before I let you enjoy everything that Beaune has to offer in this episode, let me thank the 9 new listeners who signed up to support the show on Patreon this week. Suzanne Danner, Vijay Diesh, Lacey Ambergy, Stephen Struck, Colin Buchanan, Janet Myers, Maureen Kelly, Michael Murray, Robert Stewart, and many thanks also to Cheryl Kaiser for using the Tip Your Guide button and sending in a one-time donation. November is the month of Thanksgiving, and I have a lot to be thankful for. And folks like you who support the show are definitely one of the many things I'm thankful for. My goal is to find 200 patrons who are willing to give $5 a month so I can reduce my work hours and work on the podcast part-time instead of every weekend, which is what I've been doing for 3 years. I asked for your help 3 weeks ago and I now have 30 patrons. I'm not there yet, but I'm really, really happy how this is going. And I want to thank you for coming along for this ride. You are cool people and let's keep it going. And if you too would like to join the 30 patrons, just go to patreon.com/join us. And there's going to be a link to that also on your show notes. Thank you very much. And you will get exclusive access to Lunch Break French, which is my way to help you learn French and travel-specific French. On with the show. Hello, Matt. Welcome to Join Us in France.
Hi, Annie. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for coming back. Back for more abuse. I guess it wasn't too bad the first, 2 times? Yeah, you did 2 or 3? We did 2 or 3? I don't remember.
Yeah, one long...
Yes, that I cut up in 2.
Yep.
Yeah. And today we are going to talk about Beaune in Burgundy, a place you obviously loved, but you haven't been back to for a while. And I was just there this summer. So we're going to share, ideas and stuff. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself for people who haven't listened to the first 2 episodes and why you like Beaune so much.
Sure. My name's Matt. I'm in my late 30s, and my wife and I have been traveling to Europe when we can over the last, 19 years or so.
So why did you like Beaune so much? Why did it make such an impression on you?
So we started traveling a while ago. So it was in 1999 when we made our first trip, and that's when we were in college, my wife and I. And so I think very much like a lot of Americans, we embarked on the first trip, which was tied to doing a semester in England, without much money and without much guidance, I guess, on what to see. So I think it's typical to go say, okay, I want to go see the big cities and I want to travel by train.
Okay, yeah.
Both because we were young and we couldn't rent cars. But I think for a lot of Americans, those two things are pretty common. The wanting to see as much as you can in a short amount of time, wanting to see the big cities, and wanting to travel by train because renting a car is just kind of intimidating in other countries. So on our first trip, we saw Paris and we saw Munich, and we decided to make a stop in between, and we chose Beaune in Burgundy. So we made a stop there, and we really liked it because it's a quaint place where you can see the countryside, and it was really our first exposure to European, what we felt was countryside, and it had really good food and lots of beautiful things to see. So we really liked it. And then on a return trip in 2005, where we started in Paris and ended up in Italy, we made another stop, a longer stop there, and liked it just as much, perhaps even more. So,
the great thing about Beaune is that it's really easy to get to with the train. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once you're there, really, it would be good to have a car so you can go out to the vineyards and to the various like La Baie de Cluny and all of these other things that are nearby, but not right in Beaune.
That's right. And I think that, in my previous trips, we were only there for 2 or 3 nights. And if it was a longer stay, you definitely would want a car. But we found for a shorter stay, renting bikes can get you out into the vineyards relatively quickly. And like you said, it's really easy to get there by train if you're traveling east or south.
Yeah. All right. So there are some things that struck me about Beaune, and it was my first visit. We just did an overnight. So we stayed we arrived around noon and we didn't leave until the next day around noon. So a full day, let's put it that way. And the first day, and we were coming from Paris. The first thing that surprised me is that as you drive from Paris to Beaune, you don't see a lot of vineyards, which is really strange because in my region, I live near Toulouse. As soon as you're out in the country, you're surrounded by vineyards everywhere. And it wasn't the case. And I thought, well, I'm in Burgundy. They do a lot of wine. What is this? And then I realized that in Burgundy, they're very choosy where they put their grapes. And so they don't grow them anywhere they can, like we do here in the Southwest. They grow them in the on the pieces of land where they can get the most bang for the buck. So that's a choice they make. They choose to go for quality over quantity, which we haven't been doing that in the Southwest. Let's put it that way. It's a very posh city. Did you get that feel when you were there, or did you feel like this is France? This is what it's like?
Yeah, like with most of the things, I get that now in retrospect. But being the first, smallish European town we had ever visited, and then even when we returned back in 2005, it was still probably the first smallish European town we had visited. It seemed normal to me, but now that I've been kind of around a little bit more, I do agree with you.
So it's in the department is called Côte d'Or, and French departments have numbers, which you can also see the numbers on the cars as you drive around, and that's 21. It's not a super populated city, 22,000 inhabitants, give or take. The TGV, it's on the line, on the Paris to Nice line, and so they get TGV trains all the time. They probably get, 5 or 6 a day or something like that. But there are no commercial flights. There's a small airport, but no commercial flights. The region is Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, and it's 45 kilometers south of Dijon and 150 kilometers north of Lyon. So it's kind of central, but a little bit east in France. It has a fantastic history. I'll go into that in a little bit. But to go back to my impression of the city, I said it's posh because, first of all, it's very clean. You don't see any high rises. You don't see a lot of... there's no cheap housing anywhere around there. It's all nice houses and such like things like that. And a lot of wine stores everywhere. Mm-hmm. So every other store in the city center is pretty small, right? I mean,
yeah.
You can probably walk it in, an hour, the whole thing?
Oh, yeah, easily.
Yeah, it's quite small and quaint and pleasant. It's got this central plaza. I don't remember what it's called, actually. I'll look it up. But it's got this really pretty central plaza, and if you look for pictures of Beaune, it's all pretty scenic. Mm-hmm. So we had a fun experience because when I was in Beaune, you pinged me that you were wondering if I could find this one pastry.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
So that gets back to some of the things that we really liked about our previous visit. So I think in both our visits, 1999 was a long time ago, in 2005. When we went to Beaune, both times changed kind of our view of food in general. The food, I still believe the food in this region is unbelievable. And it's stuff that every time I go back, or both times I went back, I had things I had never tasted before. So this is a long roundabout way of getting to your story.
It's definitely different from food in the most of France. Yeah.
That's right. Also, so we go to this town, we're outside of the big city, we start to eat these foods that we've never had before. So back in 1999, we stopped and we ate a goat cheese that I had never had goat cheese before. So it kind of blew my mind. Yeah. The bread, of course, is always awesome. Yes. And we had this dessert that is, it's like cylindrical, and it seemed kind of like an eclair, but on the outside, it was kind of chewy, and it was dusted with cocoa powder. Yep. And we had bought it, and we had bought the last one from the store. Uh-huh. And just, it was just one of those, oh, that looks good. Let's try that. And sure. It was unbelievable. And it was like nothing we had ever tasted before in our life. Uh-huh. And we had no idea what it was and no means to kind of figure out what it was. So we're just figuring, oh, this is probably a typical French pastry. And we just named it the devil dog for lack of any real understanding what it is. So then I go home, and all of a sudden I want to know more about cheese and start learning more about cheese.
Of course.
So then 2005, we go back, and this time we get exposed to the other Burgundy cheeses, Époisse de Bourguignon, Délices de Bourguignon, which again, I never had tasted anything like that before in my life.
Yeah, les Époisses, that's a very strong cheese. So I understood the first thing you said, Époisse de Bourgogne, and what's the other one?
Délices, D-E-L-I-C-E.
Délices de Bourgogne. Okay, Délices de Bourgogne. All right.
So those two cheeses are probably still my favorite cheeses in the world. They were just, again, changed our perspective on food. And again, went back, bought the last devil dog, if you will, at the store. Now we're a little bit more savvy. So we're thinking, oh, I think this is marzipan, which we had never had before in the previous trip, but we still don't know exactly what it is. Yeah. Have no means to figure it out. Bought the last one again. Kind of stumped. So we leave Beaune, having eaten, the best cheese we ever had, the this devil dog thing, which is unbelievable. And that's not even getting into the food and wine, which is also unbelievable. Yeah. And one thing that we had figured was that, these things are just probably found all over France. Yeah. So, which is not true.
No, this one is not true.
So to make a long story short, when we went on our big 3-week trip last summer, we realized that like you really can't get these cheeses, that much outside of Burgundy. So I mean, you get the regional cheeses, and you can get Burgundy wine because it's very popular. But you can't get the cheeses. You can't get oeuf de Bourguignon. You can't get things in Burgundy sauces. So outside of the region.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
L'œuf bourguignon, what you're calling œuf bourguignon, I think what you mean is les œufs murés. It's it's in a wine sauce, and this is truly something I had never eaten outside of Burgundy and specifically Beaune. It's a very specific. And you know what happens is the reason why you can't find those cheeses all over France is because a lot of them, the production is small enough that they can't really export, and they can't go into wide distribution, because to do that they'd have to make a ton. If you start selling to if you want to sell to Walmart, you have to have big production, right? They don't take you if you only produce 100 a year or whatever it is. So that's the issue. That's why you have to eat them while you're there, because they don't export.
Well, what's funny is we can get Epoisse here in Boston.
Oh yeah, yes.
But it's pasteurized, so it does taste a little different.
It does have to be. Yeah, in America everything is pasteurized.
Yeah. So going around, I figured, okay, these are just regional specialties. So it's still stumping me what the devil dog actually is. So I took advantage of the fact that you were there and said, well, can you go track this down? I'm sure you can find it like anywhere. And then I'll pass the story back to you.
Well, what I did is I got up that morning, and my husband and daughter were just sleeping in, of course. And I always get up early. So I was like, well, I'm going to go looking for that thing. And you had told me where you thought it was. And so I went in that direction. I went to a couple of bakeries, and I couldn't see anything. And I didn't know the name of it. I didn't have a picture of it. So I had to go by description, by visual, what looks kind of like that. And eventually, the second bakery I went to, she said, I think I know what it is. And it's something that this other bakery makes. And it's one I hadn't been to. And sure enough, when I walked in, I saw this, long thing with the powdered cocoa around it. And I asked, and she says, yes, it's something that the pastry chef here makes that. It's just us. Nobody else sells this. It's not a regional specialty. It's just something we make it at this bakery. And so I tried it, and I bought one, and I took it back to the hotel, and I didn't eat any because I can't stand marzipan. But my husband and daughter tried it, and they said, "Oh, it's pretty good." And what it is really, it's an eclair cream puff kind of thing with cream in the middle. Then the marzipan wrapped around it. It's a green marzipan. The one I bought was a green marzipan, and then powdered cocoa. And they assured me that it was delicious. But since I don't like marzipan, I stayed out of it.
Yeah, and this part of it is what just kind of blows my mind, that for the past more than 15 years, my wife and I have assumed that this thing is some sort of either regional specialty or ubiquitous in France. That's a French dessert, and it turns out kind of this thing that we've been talking about for 15 years is just a creation of one guy in one place. And I find that just truly remarkable.
Yeah. And, and it happens a lot in France. If you're a pastry chef and you have to make all the classic pastries, but some of them, they just want to, do something different once in a while. And if it takes off, they keep making it. If nobody buys it, okay, I'm done making that. But they try stuff like that. So
you say it's on Rue Carnot?
Yes.
And it's a place called Jean Ourvois, Ourvois.
Okay. I'll put it on the show notes.
Yeah. But it's funny, if you go on Google Maps and go Street View in front of this restaurant, you can actually see the pastry in the window.
Is that right?
Yeah. Not to get all sentimental, but I think this is like little things like this, like what makes travel kind of unbelievably rewarding,
of
right?
course, it is
You
great.
go and you experience this, and then it changes your perspective, and your
Yeah,
perspective might even not even be right, but then it evolves and it informs your future travels and
yeah,
kind of what you like and what you bring home with you, and
yeah.
it's really cool.
And it was fun for me to go on that, chase, looking around for this one thing, because I mean, otherwise I would have gone walking around anyway, but I wouldn't have had a purpose. So this was good.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is great. Yeah, so that was fun. So the food in Burgundy is very, very specific. It's okay. They use a lot of wine. They use a lot of wine sauce, red wine sauce, which is really flavorful. I mean, it's really too much for me. It's too much. And les œufs mourettes. I think I said mouret earlier, but I think it's œufs mourettes. It's like a poached egg that they dip into this wine sauce, and they have like a julienne, so chopped up, long chopped up vegetables that are lightly cooked but not very much. And it's just this bizarre thing. And so my daughter eats vegetarian a lot of the time. And so that was the only thing that was vegetarian on the menu, because it was eggs, but not, no meat. Because everything else has pork, or I mean, it's all sausages, pork, and so she ordered that, and she was like, "Oh, this is bizarre," like because it's really, really strong flavor. It's not something you can't mistake it for anything else. It's really different.
Yeah,
and of course their wines are lovely. But they control production, and so you pay quite a bit for wine there. At the grocery store, I couldn't find anything for less than €7, which is not normal for France. I mean, in France, you usually find it starts at 3 and you go up from there. But there, it starts at 7. So obviously a posh place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to have you say it again. The eggs. How do you say it?
Les œufs mourettes.
Okay. I can honestly say that is the best thing I've ever tasted in my life.
Wow.
In my opinion. And I love meat. I love pork and all these things, but this
just
egg
hit the spot.
Yeah. I mean, the way we had it, I think ours had some bacon or lardon in it.
Oh, okay, maybe.
We had it. And it was on these toasts and oh my goodness, it was just unbelievable.
It is good. I mean, I tasted some of it and I thought it was good, but it was just so strong, such a strong flavor. And I'll recommend, I'll put it on the show notes for this episode. I'll recommend a specific restaurant that we went to that has a lot. Okay, so we were there for a full day. So we went out to 2 restaurants. The first night we went on Place Carnot, which is the main plaza, and we just stopped at any restaurant. I'll be able to find which one, but it doesn't matter. They're all the same pretty much. They serve the same stuff, and it was okay. It was nothing to write home about. And so the next day I had to go get a light replaced in my car because my headlight was out, and I went looking for a mechanic, and the mechanic was clearly a man who likes to eat. So I asked him, where's a good restaurant that's not too touristy? And he gave me the address of this one place. And sure enough, that was very good. No tourists, just locals. And it was, it had all the things that people in the area, all the specials, the stuff that people like from that area. And it was a good place. So I will put the recommendation on the show notes because I don't remember what it was right now. I normally prepare before I do the show, but today was a super busy day. I didn't get to it yet. So there you go. But really, Beaune is a cute place. But the one thing that you have to do when you're in Beaune. So now I'll get into the history a little bit because this is important. The Beaune has been in existence as a city for a long, long time. And the Duke of Burgundy, and his name was Eudes III, which is funny because we have a fish named Eudes. He granted the city of Beaune the right to collect taxes in 1203. So it has been its own entity for a long time. And they have the charter for this 1203 event in the municipal archives. Then the one thing that everybody goes to Beaune for is to see the Hospices de Beaune. And that is an extraordinary place. It was founded in 1443 by a very, very rich nobleman. He was called Nicolas Rollin. He married his third wife, Guigonne de Salins, when he was 47 and she was 18. They had 3 kids together. And she was the one who pushed him to establish a hospital in the city. And this was really significant because back then, hospitals were all religious institutions. They were founded by a religious order and they were run by a religious order. And secular people did not do that. But Gigonne de Salins did, and her husband. They were very religious themselves because 30 years later, they also started a religious order just for the purpose of running the hospital. And the name of that was les Sœurs Hospitalières de Beaune. Now, for a long, long time, nursing was a religious calling. And you know this because in England, I don't think it's the case in America, but in England, a nurse, you call her a sister. So it's still, this is still in the terminology that people use. The other thing that you see, so when you go to the Hospice de Beaune, I assume you visited it.
Yep.
The exterior is remarkable because it has this super colorful roof. It's just really pretty and different. Visually, it's very different. It has, when you walk in, you're in this courtyard and this tall building around you with a colorful roof. It's just so nice. You could take a million pictures in there. It's so pretty. And then you go inside, and they have the audio guides are very good at giving you the history. And you walk in, and you see these beds that they established. So the big disruptive invention that they had was that they placed the beds a meter away from the wall. And so the sisters would walk between the beds and the wall, and they had this long hall that they could just walk around and do their thing. And the beds looked quite cozy. I mean, this is like 1400s, Mm-hmm. They still look like, oh, yeah, I could sleep there. It's nice. And these sisters took care of anybody who came through. I mean, they weren't. This was not a hospital for rich people. This was a hospital for everybody, which was really remarkable for the time. Go ahead. Tell us what you remember of it.
It was pretty remarkable. It's a fun place. I mean, it's really interesting. We had never seen anything like it before. I can't really say we lingered too long, but
no, it'll take you probably an hour to see it. It's not super big, actually. You see a lot of old medical instruments. You see an old apothecary. But the thing that is absolutely stunning is that Nicolas Rollin, so the man who commissioned the hospital, also commissioned an altarpiece. It's called The Last Judgment, and it's by a Flemish artist called Rogier van der Winden. I don't know how to say that name properly. And you can still see it at the Hospice de Beaune, and it is unbelievable. It is just one of the prettiest things I have ever seen. It's probably 7 or 8 meters wide, 5 meters tall, and you're in this. It's so old that, of course, it's an atmosphere-controlled room, and it's dark in there. They just light some places, and they have the person watching the visitors to make sure nobody touches it, or she has a thing to control a magnifying glass that she can slide around up and down, and if you ask her or him, could you put the magnifying glass over this area, they will. And it's really fun to see the stuff blown up to bigger sizes because you see the detail, and it's just I can't understand how anybody can paint like this.
Yeah.
It looks so striking. And I'll put pictures, of course, on the show notes for this episode. It is just one of the prettiest things I have ever seen. So just fantastic. And then When Nicolas Rolin died, his wife kept on doing the hospital, and she kept it going. And it was a hospital until 1960. So between 1443 and 1960, this place was a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time to be a hospital.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Now it's a museum, obviously. And the Hospice, because they were always owned by very wealthy people, they also own very prestigious vineyards of the famous Bourgogne appellation. And there's a wine auction that's held there the third Sunday of November, and it's called La Vente des Hospices de Beaune. Christie's runs it, and this charity that Nicolas Rolin and his wife Guigonne started, it continues to this day. But now it's a big business. I mean, they own a hospital, a retirement home, prestigious vineyards, and the Hospices de Beaune Museum. They have 700 employees. You know, the wine auction is huge. Some years they auction off, I don't know how much wine they auction off, but it's not that much. Some years they get 11 million euros for that wine.
Yeah.
It's like, and it kind of sets the price for prestigious wines all over the world, because they watch the price. How much did this thing go for? So now they know how much everything else is going to go for. Mm-hmm. So it's just an impressive thing. And we see it on TV every year in France. And they always have celebrities, obviously, you know, coming to. Anyway, Beaune is a huge center of wine lovers, but not the cheap wine lovers.
Yeah. I mean, would you say it's the main tourist draw for wine lovers in France?
Probably.
Or is it one of several?
No, it's the most prestigious one for sure.
Well, I can tell you that one of the things that we really liked about it is that you can just rent bikes from the bike shop and just bike north, and then within 10 minutes you're in the vineyards and biking around, and you can go to 3 or 4 different what seemed to us really small towns at the time that have places where you can do wine tasting and the like.
North of Beaune. Let's see.
So if you just go up the D18,
right,
you're pretty much immediately in vineyards as far as you can see from the bike.
Okay.
Which for us was just great. I mean, we'd never seen anything like that. And it's you're on the bike, it's flat, there's really no traffic. And you just bike from town to town. If you want to stop and taste wine, you can. I have to admit, when we did it, we were a little bit intimidated to pop in because the places are really small. And now I would, but at the time I was a little bit intimidated.
And a lot of places like that, don't be intimidated, because a lot of places like that, if they have a wine store, that's why they have the wine store. So people will stop by and buy a couple of bottles, and they know you're not going to buy, 100 bottles. You're not a négociant. You're just a visitor,
Yep.
So it's perfectly okay. I mean, I think if the place does not have a store or a sign that says, wine tasting or visit or something, then don't go knocking on doors, because you'll just annoy them. But if it has a sign that says we do this, why not? I do it all the time. I'm driving around the countryside. I see a place. If I have a little time, I'll stop in and see.
Yep.
And it's a very fun thing. And you try a couple bottles, and some of them I go back regularly to buy more. Some of them I don't ever go back, but a few I do. So that's good. So that's the D18. Yeah, I can see it on the map.
That's right. So when you take the D18, if you just go north on it, it's beautiful as it is. But then you come to the town, and I know my French pronunciations are not good, but it's Pernan Vergelesses.
Yes. Pernan-Vergelès.
Okay. So when you get there, if you go right through the town, you go up this pretty big hill that has kind of a monument on the top of the hill. And it is just a very beautiful view of, vistas and vineyards in every direction.
Oh, that's a really good tip. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's a tough bike up the hill. We walked our bikes up the hill, but when you get there, it's an awesome place to picnic, and probably had this best picnic ever because we've got the best food and the best views, and it was good weather. So we really liked that because the bike ride is really not strenuous. I mean, it's with
It's just
respect
that one
to
hill.
traffic. It's just that one hill. With respect to
Yeah.
traffic or hilliness, and you just get all these. It's like, isn't it wonderful to be alive type of day?
Yeah. Oh, and this, I'm looking at some photos of Pernon-Vergelès. It's clearly very nice and surrounded by vineyards.
Yes.
I mean, the
Yep.
whole place looks like vineyards around there.
Yep.
So see, we just missed it because we weren't, when you're on the freeway, you don't go through there, you don't go through the D18. That's why it's important to get off, the main drags and either on a bike or rent a car or something and just go explore a little bit.
Yeah. And on that day when we went through these towns, that town being one, we're walking on bike up the hill. And it's like, wow, these villages are so amazing. They're so quaint and beautiful. And we got some just amazing pictures. And, we just kind of fell in love with those types of places.
Yeah.
And, that informed our future travels to be, big cities are great. I like cities.
Sure.
But I think it's in places like this that I really get really excited about.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So did you just go to that town or did you see some others?
No, we went to the other towns around it too. So that was the furthest north that we went. And then after that, we came back down and we went to, Savigny-le-Bon.
Yeah, Savigny-les-Beaune.
Yep. Yeah, we went there.
Uh-huh.
And
that looks nice too.
And we went to Chorey, Les Bonnes.
Chorey-les-Bonnes?
Yep.
Nice. Oh yeah, I see it. So I'm looking at Savigny-les-Bonnes. Oh, it looks like it has a museum of aircrafts.
Yeah, we didn't
aircraft,
go.
Yeah.
And
there's a castle?
Yep, we went to the castle.
Nice.
Yep. So that kind of, I think there might have been a couple other smaller towns that were less impressionable, but that's basically, the ride. It's an easy ride and you see these cute little towns and you pass all this stuff. And that was, in terms of travels in my life, that was probably one of my favorite days.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, because Bonn itself, you're not going to spend more than maybe 3-4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at most.
That's right. Yeah.
Even if you see the Hospices de Beaune and all that. So it's great that you have other things to see around there. That's really good. It's a very, 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 very French place.
Yes.
It's got a lot of traditional French feel to it. The food is very specific. The history is beautiful. You have some really, really gorgeous things to see.
Yeah, but I would agree that the feel, at least from the American point of view, is extremely French. Well, I always say that in France, you can basically go to every single European country if you want to. I mean, if you go to the east, it's like Germany. If you go to the northwest, it's like Ireland. If you go to Normandy, it's more like England. But Burgundy is French, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's the cradle. And Loire area is also another strong cradle of very, very French. It's very interesting to me how in the Southwest and in Provence, we have very different traditions, very different feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
Culinary traditions. I mean, in Provence, you eat olives and tomatoes and all these fragrant herbs and stuff like that. You go north a little bit and you're into the cream and the pork and the wine and, it's completely different. And then you go west and it's going to be all sorts of duck things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's lighter. Because in the Southwest you can have a salad with some duck on it. But it's not this heavy meal, 5,000 calorie meal. Some of these things that were serving us, I was like, whoa, that's you got to be seriously hungry to eat that.
Yeah.
So, but lovely place. I really recommend you spend, if you want to get to know France, real France, definitely visit Burgundy. It's great.
I agree. And if your plan is to visit Paris for 4 days and then visit Avignon for 3 days, I would recommend making a stop in Beaune.
Yeah.
Because like you said, Provence will just give you one slice of non-urban France, and it's quite different from Burgundy.
And very different from Burgundy. Oh yeah, definitely. And if I had a choice between Beaune and Lyon, well, I visited both recently. I can see good reasons to go to either one. I mean, they're both really good. The culture and the food is similar between the two. So, if you can only do one, well, pick whichever one strikes your fancy. If you like to see a lot of vineyards, definitely Beaune.
Yeah, I would say if you like being in cities, probably go to Lyon. But
yes, and if you prefer big cities, Lyon is better.
Yeah.
Okay, does that pretty much cover it?
I think so. I appreciate having me on again.
Lovely. It's fun to talk to you and to hear about your adventures. I'm glad you told me about this beautiful village just north of Beaune. See, if I had talked to you before, I would have gone and checked it out myself. But I didn't get to. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening, everybody. And we'll talk to you soon. Au revoir, Matthew.
Bye-bye.
Au revoir. Hello, Jason and Robert, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks for having us.
This is great. Thank you for having us, Annie.
So today we're doing a group thing because Jason and Robert visited Beaune together, and so we want to hear about them and about what they saw. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Sure. So Bob and I have been together just about 8 years, and we decided to do an impromptu wedding last 2015 in May. And we decided at that time, well, we should probably do some sort of honeymoon or do some sort of vacation or excursion. And,
yes, that's traditional. Yes.
It is very traditional. So we ended up getting delayed a bit and work out in the way. And so a year and a half later, we're like, oh, wait, we put a pin in something and we should go on a vacation. And so we put another pin in a map and ended up being France. And so it was a wonderful trip for us to take.
Oh, that's great. And why did you pick France?
Bob and I went back and forth time and again of where to go. We were considering Mykonos. We really, truly love the Virgin Islands, so we thought about going back to St. John.
Oh, yeah.
But Bob had never been to France, and I'd never been to France. And we thought, oh, well, let's do Paris. And so Paris and Burgundy it was. And I couldn't be more thrilled that was our journey.
That's wonderful. That's great. Okay.
Yeah, we were trying to decide between an active vacation or a passive vacation, like a beach vacation. And we tried to do a little bit of both in France, which was wonderful because we had a very active time when we were in Paris, and then Beaune was a little more relaxing. So I think we were able to accomplish both.
Oh, that's great. All right, you guys, very good. So whereabouts do you live?
So we live in Rochester, New York. It's upstate New York on Lake Ontario. So we have a strong appreciation for the Finger Lakes wines, and so we've been exposed a bit to the craft of wine over the years. So
See, that's where I was going to go next. Is how much do you know about wine, and are you wine snobs, or are you just people who like to drink wine?
I would not say that we are wine snobs at all. There are definitely certain regions and types of wine that we do like to drink. We enjoy Chardonnay, more of the French style Chardonnay. We enjoy Pinots. We really like rosé in spring and summer, and even sometimes in winter when it's really great.
Yeah.
But we're very open, so we did not have specific towns or vintners that we had sought out when we went to Beaune. We just kind of said, all right, Beaune is kind of in the middle, so we'll plant ourselves there, and we will go in each direction and just go at an easy pace and see what each of the towns has to offer.
Right. So how did you get to Beaune to begin with? Because you started out in Paris.
We did, yeah. So we left Gare de Lyon and took the bullet from Paris straight to Lyon. So I should mention, too, that our initial itinerary had us going from Paris to Lyon, renting a car to Beaune. But that was a bit of an American way of building a trip. So we opted to cut Lyon altogether and go from Paris to Lyon and then take a car right to Beaune. So we were able to spend 4 to 5 nights in Beaune rather than 2 nights. And so I felt like that was a really strong decision, and I'm happy that we ended up doing that.
Yeah.
So we spent it in Lyon, and we were able to see Lyon and Notre Dame and.
Well, really, only an afternoon, only a few hours.
It's true.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, you get a feel for the place just in a few hours. Although Lyon, it's hard to get a feel for. It's a large city, so.
Yes, it was very spread out. But we did a couple hours of walking and had lunch, and then got in the car and got to Beaune.
Mm-hmm. Did you rent a car?
Lyon was beautiful. We did have a car in Lyon, so we rented a little car in Lyon and made our way through Macon and up through Burgundy to Beaune.
Oh, very good. And was that fairly straightforward driving in France?
Oh yeah, it was very easy.
Yeah.
I did the majority of the driving, but it was very easy, very navigable.
Good.
And pretty. It's the countryside is beautiful. There's a little village after village just kind of pocketed throughout the hills, and to kind of see it see it live when you've been looking at it on a map all this time, it's really quite wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most people don't realize how rural France is.
Yes.
We don't really have mega big cities. Paris is, 10 million, maybe 12 million if you take more of the kind of crown around Paris, but that's still not very large. And there's, besides Lyon and Marseille, there's no French cities that are over 1 million. So it's mostly small places and lots of tiny villages. So that's one of the charms, I guess. But to see those tiny villages, it is way better if you have a car.
Stunning. Yeah. And that's where my appreciation lies, are these small little villages that are, upwards of 600 and 700 and 800 years old that stood the test of time and built around the craft of whether it be winemaking or it was just beautiful. It was wonderful.
So where did you stay in Beaune? You stayed 4 nights?
We did. We ended up renting a little apartment through Airbnb, actually, just down the street from Le Cep and across the street from the Fallot mustard factory. And it was this beautiful apartment that was probably 2 years new. I believe it was built by an architect. It was just a stunning little apartment with a cute little terrace that overlooked town. It was perfect. It was exactly what we needed and wanted.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
It was very affordable. It wasn't an outrageous spend to rent. So that was wonderful too.
Very good. All right. So now you're in Beaune. Tell me what you did.
Sure. So we got to Beaune in the evening of Monday, I believe. I'm very confused on my days all the time.
Yeah, that's what you had in your written outline. So I believe that.
So it was wonderful. So we got there Monday evening, and it was about 7 by the time we got there. It was dark, so we kind of went to the supermarket and got some provisions for the next coming days. And then Tuesday we woke up and we decided that we would do kind of the southern loop of the area. So we went through...
No, that's Tuesday. Was that?
Oh, I'm being corrected already.
Uh-oh. Tuesday was our day that we walked around the village of Beaune and visited the Hospice de Beaune,
Beaune Hospice.
Beaune Hospice.
Yes. And what did you think of that?
Oh,
that was amazing. That was a wonderful tour. Although it's very small, the tour probably took about 2 hours, but a really nice audio tour, and it kind of allows you to select the level of interest you have in it. And, so there's kind of an initial tour and then a press here for more sort of tour as well. So really informative. That building, that structure it's been amazingly kept up over the years. It's unbelievable the work that they put into preserving that and how highly they value that as really the gem of the city. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a very unique building because this hospital was the very first kind of lay hospital, not started by monks or nuns, even though nuns did work. After they started the hospital, they established an order of nuns to keep working at the hospital. But it was just, it's really well taken care of. It's really beautiful. It also helps that there's so much money in that area.
It's a beautiful resort town, and I'm sure they do that fabulous wine auction every year, which raises quite a bit of money. And it was also very interesting to hear. It started in the early 1400s, and the gentleman and his wife who endowed it were really they were really kind of at the forefront of the type of care they wanted to provide. They were very defined in their approach, and I think that those tenets have kind of held through the centuries and really allowed them to continue operation.
Yeah, and nowadays it's one of the wine auction at Beaune that they hold in the hospices. Actually, it should be coming up very soon. I think it's in November.
Yeah, November, I think.
Yeah, it should be very soon. Some years, it fetches like $12 million for a set number of bottles.
Yes.
So it's a lot of it's a lot of money for it's top wine. It's top quality wine for anywhere. Okay.
Well, and it's interesting too because we're doing a lot of French wine research, we'll call it, before we left, and we would go to the wine shops here and you would see the labels under Hospices de Beaune, and coming back, it makes so much more sense why those bottles were expensive as they were and sought after as they were.
Yeah.
When we talk a little bit more about the vineyards, we should come back to some of the land ownership because we learned some really interesting facts about that when we were talking with a few of the vineyard owners.
Well, do tell them now. I mean, it's okay. We can talk about it now.
Oh, sure. So we, as you go to the different wine caves and as you go to the different vineyards, the smaller vineyards that are kind of scattered throughout Beaune, they are very informative as to specifically the plot which those grapes come from and how long they've had that plot, how they acquired it. But it was also very interesting to learn that individuals, and similar to I'm thinking how you described the inheritance coming down over the years and the parcels and plots get split up a bit more. Individuals or families can own specific rows of one plot of land, and they kind of. Whereas I think in the U.S. we're more conditioned to think, one organization owns this plot of land and all of their grapes come from that plot of land. So it's a single varietal, and then they have to tell you if it's a blend, if they blended it from someone else's land or they've bought the grapes. It just seems to be a bit different in France. So if you own 2 rows of grapes, you really can't do anything with those. So you have to sell to your neighbor who might own 30 or 40 or 50. And kind of be a partner in that blend of wine for that season. Yeah. And it was just really interesting to hear the difference between the approach in the U.S. and the approach that they take in France.
Well, that's pretty typical of Beaune, actually, of Burgundy, because those are such high-priced wines. For the rest of France, I've never heard of anybody owning just a few rows of like Bordeaux or something. Wow. They would own a parcel. It might not be huge, but it's. I think that's something that's specific to Beaune and to the wine culture there. As far as I know, I'm not. I don't work in that industry, so sure. I can't really speak for. But I've heard of it in Beaune, but not anywhere else in France. So mostly in France, people own. An acre or something, that would be a fairly small chunk, but hey, and also in France, lots of people don't have enough to make a big production, and so they will get together with neighbors and they have arrangements to produce the wine in different ways. So yeah. Okay, very good. So let's talk about specifically the first I have on your list of a winery is Patriarche Père et Fils.
Yeah, so that was our second day in, and I stopped by the tourism office the first morning we were there, and they shared in great detail some opportunities just within town to explore. And so we picked Patriarche to do a wine tasting. And according to Patriarche, they have miles and miles of underground caves under the city. And
yeah, I think they said they have 5 kilometers of cave and 3 million bottles in that cellar.
Right. So when you say cave, you mean une cave, which is the French word. Yes, it's not really like a cave where animals dwell. It's
right, yes. It's much more sophisticated,
much more civilized.
Yeah. It means like a cellar. I think the right word in English would be cellar, right?
I think that is true. Yes.
And sometimes it's underground, but sometimes not.
And Patriarche had you could just wander through the cellar and walk through and just see the bottles stacked, and you could do 19 tastings of their wines, and it was pretty much self-guided and lit by the dimmest of light, and it wasn't crowded. It was a really, really, really fun experience.
And it kind of smells musty in there usually.
Yes, it's musty and kind of closed off feeling, which adds to the experience. It's very quiet, although in some areas you are able to hear when a car goes over the road, which is kind of fun. So it was very interesting. It was very fun.
Yeah. So, but it was mostly, you visited did you see the production or just like where they store?
No, we did not see the production. That was not presented to us as an option.
Yeah.
It was really just more of this self-guided tour, and there were a couple of video kiosks in the beginning to ground you to their operation, and then they basically turned you loose in the cellar, and you could stay for as long or as short as you wanted and just taste at your own leisure.
Yeah, and you could obviously buy it on the property?
Yes,
Yes.
you could.
Okay. Yeah, and that also happens sometimes in France. The really exclusive wines, you can't even buy it on the property.
Really?
Yes. So I've seen that even in Bordeaux, where they don't produce enough to sell to other people who come by to visit. And so they tell you, look, just go in the city in this one wine retailer, and they might have some we don't know.
So they work exclusively with the distributor, and wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So it happens sometimes it's usually with higher priced wines. There's like the 300 euro type bottle wines. It's if
that
somebody's
was not the price point.
yeah. So, all right. So
Yeah,
that was was your first experience, Patriarche Père et Fils.
It was, and it was a nice way to kick it off too.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there we walked back into town, and we stopped at a little bar in town called Magnum, and Magnum Bar of Inns, and had a glass of wine, and just said it was like a little wine cafe, and all the streets feel very pedestrian, even though I'm sure cars can go up and down, but it was just a really nice afternoon experience.
Yeah. But, Beaune is a beautiful resort town. Like you said earlier, a lot of money, great shopping, great restaurants, and I think people are generally relaxed, so that adds to the very laid back feeling of that town.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a very okay. I live in France all the time, and I'm from the Southwest, and in the Southwest we're a bit kind of rough around the edges. So when I show up in Beaune, I'm like, oh my goodness, these people are property. I'm gonna have to watch how I talk or whatever.
There are obviously a lot of tourists, a lot of English people, a lot of Germans.
Viking river cruises.
It was a big kind of Viking river cruise outpost. I think they bust them in and do a little tour of Beaune. So it's to the audience that you get there.
Yeah. So I felt like it was definitely a higher class than where I live, which is like, hey, just slap on the back, and it didn't feel quite the same. And
there were a lot of diamonds at dinner and that sort of thing. But I think for us, it wasn't in your face. It was, those people are doing what they want to do, and we did what we want to do.
Exactly.
And that's not why we were there either. So it didn't even get in the way. We'd rather come to Toulouse next time, Annie. So we'll come see you next time.
That's
I want to see the airport factory in Toulouse.
Yes. Oh, that's a fun visit. That's a really fun visit.
I would love to do that.
Yeah. All right. So then that was Magnum Bar à Vin, which Beaune is chock full of bar à vin. You can have a glass of wine pretty much anywhere you go, and you can just walk in and order whatever pleases you. And they will usually offer a little appetizer to go with, right?
Yes,
potato chips or olives or, something along those lines.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, then you had dinner at something called La Concorde.
We did, yeah. I think it was in Place Carnot. It kind of faced the main courtyard there, and it was a cute little restaurant. It was a little brasserie just in town, and I think that was where we had escargot, and
I think I had veal. You had escargot,
and I think I had beef bourguignon.
So, what did you think of the escargot?
Oh, I've had better other places, but it was delicious. I thought it was to me, it was very tasty. I enjoyed it. I was pretty open receiving.
Yeah. See, that's something I won't eat. So I
you and me are together on that one. I will get almost anything down, but that can't pass my lips.
Yeah, no, I've had it before I decided, no, I'm not enjoying this. I'm not doing it anymore. But it's true that in Beaune, pretty much any restaurant even the kind of the prix fixe kind of menu will offer escargot as an appetizer, and you get like 4 or 6 of them. I mean, it's not, but it is definitely in French they're called escargot de Bourgogne. So that's the local specialty. So if you will eat that, this is a great place to try it.
Yeah,
but they probably serve so many. They probably serve millions of those things. So I don't know if it would be the highest quality or not. I don't know.
I don't know if the place we ate would be considered perhaps the highest quality, but I think I had escargot at another restaurant, and it was I think it was Le Petit, which was right around the corner, and that was delicious.
Very good. What do you call that? I didn't.
Les Paupiettes.
Les Paupiettes. Yes.
Yes.
Les Paupiettes.
That was delicious. That was our last night.
Very good. Yeah, the only place where we had a restaurant meal in Beaune was called Raisin Gourmand. but it's off the beaten track. It's not at all in the city. It's kind of you have to drive out a little bit, and I'll put the address on the website. It was just French people, so to me that's always a good sign when
that's a great sign.
And all the restaurants in the center of Beaune felt like very, very touristy.
Yes, I would agree with that. I had a funny realization toward the end of the trip. I happened to use Rick Steves' book as sort of a guide, a bit of a sort of a sketch to kind of choose some places to go. And I think one of the restaurants, actually two of the restaurants during our entire time in France was recommended through Rick Steves, and we left and I thought, wow, there are a lot of English speakers kind of surrounding us. And then it dawned on me that, everyone picked up the Rick Steves book. And,
exactly.
I don't know.
Rick Steves
said the food at those restaurants was really great.
Yeah, that's usually if they make an effort to maintain the quality. This is always the devil with places that get a lot of tourists,
right.
Is they know that they will probably not get any return customers. So their aim is to get you in and out, to get you to spend as much as they can today, leave you, happy enough, but they don't need to dazzle you so that you'll come back again and again, because you'll probably never be there again. So, So that's the problem. And then when you add the Rick Steves effect, then some of these places try to keep up the quality, and some of them don't give a hoot. They're like, people will come no matter what we do. So
because Rick Steves did all the service in the world by mentioning.
Yeah. So, and he probably gets a cut. I don't know, but
some service back of house. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's service to the world or if it's I don't know. I'm just speculating here. Okay, very good. Let's move on to the next day. It sounds like you went to the market.
We did. And so Wednesday was my favorite day, I think, of all of our journey, because we got up. And so as we decided to come to Burgundy, we thought, it's such a bikeable town, and the vineyards have vineyard-only roads that are not really open to general traffic. And so we thought, let's spend a day and go for a bike ride and just bike through Côte d'Or and visit the different vineyards by bike. And so we got up and biked to the market in Beaune, and it's actually much larger on Saturday, but even the Wednesday morning market was really special. And so we biked over to the market, and
you just rented a bike, right?
Actually, the apartment that we rented through Airbnb, the neighbors just lent us their bikes. They were very
nice.
sweet.
Yeah, they were great hosts. That was just a fantastic place.
That's great.
She insisted that we just take these bikes, please take them.
And they were beautiful bikes. They were brand new, very expensive mountain bikes, and we're like, okay, all right.
All right, how nice.
Yes. So we got on the bikes and we made our way into town, and then we realized quickly this biking experience is just not going to get us to where we wanted to be, because we felt like we wanted to do so much more than a bike would provide that day. So we hung the bikes up and left the market and got in the car and drove south to Côte d'Or, which ended up being a really good choice, because we were able to kind of soak in so much just in the southern region of Burgundy. It was a magical day, and my favorite part too was it was harvest season, and so the energy was palpable, and people were in the fields cutting the grapes, and the energy was just I think that's what I appreciate the most, is just there's this authentic appreciation for the craftsmanship and the creation of wine from Burgundy. That, to me, that there's nothing else that can replace that.
So tell us a little bit about the people who were harvesting the grapes. Who did you see at work?
So that's a really fun experience. So our very first stop was Volnay, or was it Volnay or Pommard?
It was Pommard.
Pommard. And so we stopped in Pommard, and there's you throw a stone and there's a vineyard, or there's a vineyard. And so that was fun in itself. But then the very first stop, we parked the car and we look over. And so I should back up that in the Finger Lakes region, people jump in these big buses, and they just sort of go for consumption and not perhaps appreciation of wine. Yeah. And so we look over to this vintner just around the corner of Pommard, and this wild and crazy troupe. They have plastic grape leaves hanging from their heads, and
they're kind of all dressed like Bacchus. Like they've got togas on and grape leaves and plastic grapes, and
wow.
They were loud. You could tell they had a lot to drink, but they were fun. And so we kind of walked around. We weren't quite sure what was going on, so we were like, we just kind of made our way to a little cellar, but they kind of paralleled our entire day, and in every town we went to, they were there with their little rented buses, and they were honking the horns and screaming out the windows, and it took us down to figure out what was going on. I think we stopped into one of the bakeries.
So actually, they were celebrating the culmination of the harvest. And had I known that, I would have had so much more appreciation. Because here I thought at first, they're just here to mass consume the wine, but they were actually more than likely harvest workers that had completed the harvest. And
Yeah. Well, and this is good because I was just thinking that they are very uppity. This is the sort of thing you'd see in the Southwest. You see people dressing up funky.
These people were having a great time.
Wonderful time.
And having a good time, and being silly. I didn't think that happened in Pommard. I mean, so that's good, actually.
The funny thing is, so we had that experience, and then we went to in Pommard. We stopped at this.
I have a review.
Yeah, Jason brought the bottles of wine upstairs. Albert Boilot.
Albert.
Illot.
Okay.
But he had a very small cave of 22,000 bottles, and he was I think an 8th or 9th generation winemaker from that region, and it was just Jason and I who went in there, and we interrupted him during midi, which we didn't quite get a grasp of until by our third day, and no one was open from
Philistines.
Yeah, but he was very nice, very accommodating.
So
he gave us a very nice tour of his cava and then his production facility, and took us through his family history. And he had wines dating back from the late 1800s.
Oh, wow.
So it was very interesting, very interesting.
So unassuming, wonderful.
That's what makes it nice, that these wines fetch enough money that you can be a tiny producer and still live reasonably well.
Yes.
And the bottle of wine that we bought from him was great, but I think it was only €22 or 24 euro. It really was not. When you think about an expensive bottle of wine, it was not even on the scale.
Yeah, it's really hard to sell wine, very expensive wine in France. It's because French people are very cheap when it comes to wine. I know this surprises Americans, but we don't like to spend a lot of money on wine. To us, 15, 20, 25 euros is a lot of money for wine.
Yes.
You don't have to spend a lot for really good wine
and
either.
That's the thing, yes.
Nice.
We have so much choice, so much variety, so many places. You can just get something really pleasant for, 5, 10 euros most places.
Right.
And so this guy wanted to sell it for 20 or whatever, that's more than average. So, yeah. Oh, but that's fun that he showed you around anyway, even though you interrupted lunch. That's good.
Yes.
He was so kind and receiving. It was very kind of him to kind of open the door and kind of take us through it. It was very sweet.
Albert Boilot. I need to look him up. Let's see.
And it was right in the center of town, too. I can send you the link, too.
I can picture where we parked and where we walked.
Yeah.
Domaine Albert Boilot. Okay, I found it.
That's it.
Yeah. Oh,
and again,
tiny. On the website, there's a picture of an old guy, Raymond Boilot. Yeah, he looks like a Raymond Boilot.
I can't remember his name. I think Albert was his father. But he was probably, the gentleman who took us on the tour was probably around 60, give or take 5 years.
Yeah. Oh, very nice, very nice. So so you just walked in, right? You hadn't planned this, you hadn't reserved, you just drove, stopped your car, and walked in.
I should preface all of my feedback with, I did absolutely no preparation for this trip at all. Jason planned the entire thing. I travel almost every week for work, so every time he asked me something, I said, just do what you want to do. I said, it'll be great. Yeah. So I showed up and just got on the itinerary and took it, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. This is the way it goes with every group or every family. There's the kind of designated travel planner. Yes, it's unofficial, nobody actually says, but
yeah, right.
If anything goes really wrong, that poor person is going to hear about it.
No, Jason loved it. Are you kidding? He loved every second of it.
Oh, that's good. That's great.
This is his first trip to Europe. So
yes, you said that. Yeah.
Especially meaningful.
Yeah. Okay, so then you went to Volnay on the same day.
Yes. So that was the really, really wonderful thing is you would blink and the next town was right around the corner.
Yeah, they're only 2 or 3 kilometers from each other and very easy to get to.
And each more adorable than the last. They're just more beautiful. And we actually left Volnay and we headed to Meursault. And Merceau is where I think we got off sort of the main route and started to head into town. And behind us were these 3 vans packed with revelers, and they weren't honking the horn. They were holding the horn down the entire time behind us. And so, being naive Americans, we thought, "Oh, are we going the wrong way?
Right?
Yeah.
Are we in the way?" And so we ended up pulling over, and they were just again, I think, just celebrating the harvest, and they just kind of drove all around town with the horn laid on constant.
Yeah.
The energy again.
It was funny. I'm like, what am I doing wrong in the car? It's not a complicated car to drive, so I'm sure all the relevant lights were on and that sort of thing. But
That's funny. Well, see, we do that. Honking the horn like that is it's usually for celebration. Yeah, it's a wedding, or it's apparently a wine festival or a wine celebration of some sort as well. That's cool.
And Merceau was beautiful. It's this beautiful little village with this amazing town hall with a very Burgundian roof with multi-pattern tile, and it's
Merceau was I would say Merceau was the most established from a services perspective. So a lot of restaurants, a lot of hotels. Although it was a very small town, it had a very defined center. It was immaculate.
Mm-hmm.
It was just it was a beautiful town.
Yeah.
It was almost as though it was a miniature Beaune.
Mm-hmm.
Analogy.
I'm looking at some photos of Meursault, the town center. It looks like they even have a bike they have signs that show some sort of bike tour or something that point the way. If you're on this tour, keep going this direction, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That was one of the options too, Annie, was to do guided or self-guided bike tours through Burgundy. And we didn't get a chance to do that. Had we had more time, we would have done that. But I recommend listeners, if they do consider going to Burgundy, that if they have time to just do a day on the bike.
Yeah, I think if you're going to spend 5 or 7 days there, that would make sense. If you're there for 3 or 4 days in order to cover, it certainly depends on what you want to do. But if you want to go to the towns in the north and you want to go to the towns in the south, it might just be more efficient to have a car.
Yeah, well, I'm looking it up to see if you were riding your bike between Beaune and Volnay, for instance, and Meursault is right south of there.
Yeah.
So it would be 6.1 kilometers with a little bit of a hill, but not too bad. And if you went to Meursault, it's actually totally even walkable. I mean, it's not like there's probably not a lot of traffic.
Well, yeah, generally when you leave the first town, you can see the second town down the road.
Yeah. Meursault to the center of Beaune is 9 kilometers. So it's really, and it's mostly flat too. Well, but see, if you go through Volnay, you will have hills. If you go just the straightest route between Beaune and...
Volnay was up on the hill.
It was.
You mentioned, Annie.
Yeah. Anyway, that's cool. That's very cool. Yeah, so if you are a bike enthusiast, I think it's totally doable with a bike. But if I would never bike that much. I don't like bicycles.
Well, I think if you have the time, it'd be great to do if that's something you enjoy. But you definitely see all of the beauty of the landscape by the car as well.
Yeah. And you wanted to mention a boulangerie there. You have that on Wednesday. What was so special about that boulangerie?
Probably nothing different than any other boulangerie in France, but it was just magical because again, the energy in Merceau. But it was staffed by such wonderful folks, and we just had delicious French macarons. And I think what else did we eat at the boulangerie?
They had a beautiful fig tart which we bought. Some sort of chocolate. That was our lunch that day. Just a whole box of sweets, which was great. But yeah, it was wonderful. It was just a very nice place.
Yeah.
And from there, we went to Rochefort.
Yeah, with the biking, I should mention, too, is what I did find out at the tourism office is that you can do a bit of a one-way bike. So you can bike from Beaune through Pommard-Volnay down to Merceau, through Poligny, Montrocher, and then take the train from Chigny back to Beaune. So that would be an option for visitors, too, that we didn't do this time, but is an option.
So say all that again, because I didn't get all these names.
Sure. So you can bike from Beaune through Pommard to Volnay to Merceau and down to Pouligny, Montrocher, perhaps?
Pouligny, yes, Pouligny, Montrachet. I see it. Yes.
And then just south of there is Chagny. Chagny?
Chagny.
And then Chagny, there's a bus stop, a train stop, and you can take the train with your bike back to Beaune. So that would be an interesting journey had we had more time, and hopefully a listener.
Let's see. So if you wanted to bike, let me look it up. Between Beaune and Chagny. So that'd be about 20 kilometers if you went straight. But if you go to all these stops, it'd probably be like 30 kilometers. So, a good amount of biking. But, I mean, people who like to bike do between 30 and 50 anyway, typically.
Sure.
So, yeah, that would be a fun thing. So Chagny has a train that will take you back to Beaune. Excellent.
Yes.
Very good to know.
I think it's a bit of a commuter train. Yeah, that was an option.
Yeah, very good. Okay, you did a castle tour.
Oh, Andy, this was beautiful. La Rochepot. So Chateau de la Rochepot. And again, it's one of those magical things. You just sort of, you turn a corner and you start going up the hill and you go over the hill filled with vineyards. And then you sort of crest over and you look out and there's this beautiful medieval chateau high atop of a hill with a little village at the bottom of it. It was a really, really wonderful, it was storybook,
Yeah, it was. The interesting thing about that, and I've been to Europe several times and have been in a lot of castles and that sort of thing. Is this was a very small castle, very small, very much like a family home from, I think it was the late 1200s or 1300s when it was built. But when you think about a castle like Neuschwanstein or something like that, this is, if I were to estimate it in kind of American terms, it was probably 20,000 square feet or 25,000 square feet, which is certainly large, but it is not what I would think of when I think of a castle in Europe. Mm-hmm. But it was very, very high above the city, very kind of sheer cliff down to the town. Wow. A bit of a hike up, but really well worth it. And there was a little refreshment stand there.
We were the only people there.
Yeah, you could have a small lunch, certainly soft drinks and that sort of thing. And then we were the only people until the end of the tour of the castle, which was really cool. And
so what do you see once you're inside the castle?
I'm sorry, what
do you see once you're inside? Is there like furniture?
There's furniture. I think you enter through the weapons room or the armament room, and the
original kitchen.
The original kitchen. Well, they had the kitchen redone in the 1900s. But they, along the wall, and there are some stands on the floor along the side of the wall that kind of take you through the story of the castle and the families that lived there a bit.
In English?
It's pretty much guided.
In English?
Yes, there was a placard that they provided us when we came in. So kind of a laminated sheet of paper, and that was in English to give us I believe it was more of like the suggested tour route and just kind of a brief description of the rooms and what we would see. The history... In the chapel, there were placards in English. I think they were French and English.
Primarily in French, though. It was predominantly French.
That's good, though. I mean, if they give you some of both, that's really good.
People with very limited French, like we have, would easily be able to get through it.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's true anywhere that gets a lot of tourists. Although that particular castle probably doesn't get that many tourists, but it's good that they had some English, because a place like that in the Southwest, they wouldn't have any English. It'd be like you'd be lucky if there was anything in French. So,
I think that's something that if you're in the area, you should definitely make the effort to go to. It probably would only add a half an hour or 40 minutes to your journey, but it's a special little place. It provides great views.
Yeah.
When you get into the tower, it's very high up. But, and I think it was, €7 or €8 a ticket or something like that. It wasn't, but it was just very interesting. It was very cool.
That's very nice. So, what else did you do that day? You did a lot of stuff that day.
We covered a lot.
Ocre.
And then
yes, help us. Can you help us say that? I think I'm going to butcher it, Annie.
I think it's Ocre.
Ocre. And just outside of this town, there's this steep cliff that you just kind of stumble upon. And you look out and you see a little village, Saint Romain, but it was this beautiful little spot that we ended up having an impromptu picnic, had a bottle of champagne and cheese.
Quaint Bourguignon.
Yeah,
it was funny. We just packed kind of a few snacks to have along the way. We had a hunk of meat, and we had a few cheeses, and we had I think we had a hunk of bread and our bottle of Cremant de Bourguignon. And
you have to explain what Cremant de Bourguignon is for people who don't know.
Cremant de Bourguignon, I believe it's the regional sparkling wine.
Yeah.
Very affordable. I think, 8 or 9, 10 euro, depending on where you get it from. Very clean and dry. Just very enjoyable. Perfect for a picnic with meats and cheeses. And this cliff that we were stationed on, you saw quite a bit of Burgundy. It was a great vantage point of multiple cities out into the distance. And it was absolutely beautiful. Really, really breathtaking. And what we learned when we passed that and went around in the cars, that those cliffs are lit at night. So there's all of this lighting work underneath, and it shines up at night and highlights those cliffs.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it was really great. We had fantastic weather. Every day was 70 and sunny in Paris and in Beaune. It was amazing.
And you were here what time of the year?
End of September.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect.
So the bluest of blue skies.
Yeah, it was just fantastic.
Perfect temperature.
Yeah. Wow, that is tiny, teeny, tiny. Amour d'orge. Amour d'orge.
Because we drove down in, and it was teeny tiny, and we rode back out because there were some bikers going in there as well.
Yes.
So what did you do there? Did you just look around?
We did. We just set up shop. We had a little music player, and we played some Adele and had a sparkling and a chunk of bread and meat from the market in Beaune earlier in the morning, and just really enjoyed the afternoon. It was a wonderful little spot.
Excellent. So that's a good place to kick back.
Yes.
And driving through all these little towns didn't intimidate you?
No, not at all.
Yeah. Even though it's narrow and probably windy and possibly hilly?
It was very hilly in several of the towns. But, we had a smaller car. I don't remember which one we had. It was a Renault.
Mm-hmm.
But it was smaller, and some of the roads were very tight, and some of the turns were blind. But you take it on good faith that you're going to make it through, and your neighbor will do the same.
Yeah, people are used to it. I mean, they just go slow, and that's what we do.
Well, there's no hurry either, so that's nice.
Exactly. So, amour d'orge. That's a hard word even for me to say.
So, that sounds like when you say it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to your next destination.
So I think one of our last stops was, I don't even know if we really stopped in Saint Romain, but Saint Romain, I believe, is where they make the wine barrels that a lot of the vintners use to barrel the wine.
Yes,
so,
there was a larger manufacturer of wine barrels. Yeah, he had all the pallets of wood out, and
you could smell the wood.
It was at least the section we were in seemed a little more industrial. There weren't really. It wasn't a village that you would think of stopping in to go and explore the wine there.
Yeah, not as scenic.
And I think that ended up being between 4 and 5 o'clock, and so we made our way back to Beaune for the evening. So that was our first day in Côte d'Or.
Then you had dinner at Le Petit Paradis.
Oh, it was wonderful. This tiny, tiny little restaurant that I think it maybe sat 12 tables. We had the most wonderful waitress. We had a bottle of wine from Saint Romain. So it was just a very fitting way of ending the day in Beaune.
Oh, that sounds good. A tiny restaurant in Beaune. That's really good. That's a good recommendation.
Yes, it was off the main drag. It was down a bit of an alley. But, we say that, and then there were 3 girls from Texas at the table next to us. Who we also saw at the train station. And, but truly, the food was excellent there. Very, very good.
They were stalking you.
They were stalking us.
Who was stalking whom?
That's right.
So our next day, Thursday, we decided to travel north to Côte de Nuit and explore some of the vineyards that way. But before doing so, again, back to the tourism office, they recommended that we visit the local mustard museum, which was across the street from our our apartment. So we thought, well, why not? It's right there. We should just check out where they make local Dijon mustard. And
Edmund Fellow was the name of the
yes
company.
Yes. Yeah, because Dijon is not very far from Beaune, for people who are not familiar with the area. Dijon is just a little bit north of Beaune, maybe an hour drive, maybe, at most.
Oh, I might even, the train was maybe a 10-minute commuter train from Beaune to Dijon.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And they took us through, Dijon de Bourguignon, or whatever the classification is that the mustard seed can only come from the Burgundy region, but if it's produced not under that guidance, they can import they import a lot of seeds from Canada, they said. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, they took us through some of the regulation and the history of mustard making, which was really informative. They have a beautiful gift shop check-in reception area.
Very high concept, digital monitors throughout, and a tasting bar so you could sample all the different mustards that they produce. I think we were a week into our trip, and so I think we were starting to get a little punchy, and so we found a lot of things funny. And so there was this mustard bar where you could sample different mustards that was made locally. And this gentleman, I think he may have been German. He ended up being on the tour with us, but he didn't realize that there were spouts when you hit the handle to sample, and so he just kept hitting the spout or the taps like it was a whack-a-mole.
He kept pushing him down like it was a game.
And so we're seeing all this mustard just kind of spill over the side of the bar, and we couldn't contain ourselves. We were laughing so hard, and this poor guy was clueless of what he was doing.
Wow. Tourists.
It was a very funny.
The mustard was just going down the sides of this tasting bar. It was really funny.
Oh, that would be a nightmare, having to herd tourists through a mustard bar. Oh, goodness.
But then at the end, he realized what he had done, and so these little tasting spoons, and he tried to start to clean up after his experience. And
it's funny. So did any of them taste good to you?
Oh yeah. My gosh, I think they produced 30 different types, and I think we sampled at least 10 or 12. And on the tour that we took, we made our own. So they have you grind them with a mortar and pestle, and add the vinegar and the salt, and everybody kind of does it differently. They break you up into groups, and then you taste everybody else's, which is interesting because they all kind of were a bit different. And you go through a tour of like their history, and very interesting. And
now,
just kind of out of the podcast, I would say that the tour was about an hour and a half, which was probably twice as long as it needed to be. We were ready to go halfway through it, and there was not in my opinion, there was not enough content to support the time that they took. But they did do a very nice job, and their facility was first class. And
everything was in bilingual. The tour guide would speak the entire tour in French, and then break, and then speak entirely in English. So that
would make it last forever.
Yes, that did sort of extend the trip, I think, unfortunately. Or
yeah. That's painful. That's painful because for people like me who speak both, I'm like, what do I do? Do I nitpick at translation or shoot myself right away? That's bad for anybody. Like, it's like, anyway, okay. So this Fallow Mustard Mill, that was in Beaune, right?
Yes, right in the city center, yeah.
In the city center. Somehow I totally missed it.
Yeah, Yep, just yes. It was very sweet.
And then you went north to Côte de Nuit.
We did. And again, the countryside, beautiful. And our first stop was in Elox-Corton. And again, we made the very sort of Western American mistake of stopping in just as the person working the tasting room was going to go on lunch break. But she was very hospitable and kind.
Yes. She gave us a really nice tour and spent a lot of time with us.
So what did you feel was appropriate for you to do in that case? Because I assume whenever you stopped in like this, you didn't have to pay. I mean, there wasn't like a fee to a visit.
No, not actually. Well, so at a couple of the wineries in the south, I think there was like a €5 tasting fee. At this particular one we stopped into, there was not. Mm-hmm. But we did buy 2 bottles of wine.
Okay.
And those were what was the winery? I'm trying to look at the bottle.
Chateau de Courtois André.
That's what I usually do if I don't if the visit is free, I just buy a few bottles of wine.
Yes.
And, I'll drink it eventually. Although when you're just visiting like you guys and you're not here very long, you might end up very drunk if you try to drink it all before you go. But
it did prove to be the challenge, is we actually would like to have purchased more, but we were limited with what we could bring back to the States.
Yeah.
Looking back, I wish we had purchased perhaps another bottle or two to bring back. But
yeah, I think in most states you can legally do 2 bottles per adult.
Yes.
It's not very much,
It's expensive to ship back, though. I think it was 120 euro per 6 bottles.
Yeah, and it's really, really hard because the rules, I don't know in your state, but most states you have to fill up reams of papers to just ship wine.
So, really?
Yeah,
she did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to do. So some people do it, but I wouldn't want to go through it. So I'd rather just drink it there.
Right, drink it and enjoy it.
That's right. Oh, Nuit Saint-Georges. That's one that's actually famous. I've had some of that.
That was, again, another beautiful, that was a larger town. I would say it's a small city, but a very, very sweet town.
Yeah. And did you spend very much time, or you just went and tried some wine?
Yeah, I think we even just drove through that time. I don't think we
stopped there.
Oh, okay. You didn't even stop. Okay. All right.
Andre, she had shared we were learning more about the region and sort of the different varietals based on the slope. And some of the hills were more considered bold and masculine. And at Corton Andre, she mentioned that Chambord Musigny had a more elegant, more feminine appeal to the wine. And I must sample this wine from Chambord Musigny because it's a nice contrast to the traditional Burgundy. And so we made our way to Chambord Musigny.
Very good. And what did you think? Was it more feminine, or was that just marketing?
Probably a little bit of, but it was probably a little marketing.
It's hard when you're comparing 1 or 2 labels of wine to each other, and you don't really have a full representation. I don't think we had spent enough time in each of the towns or in the region as a whole to put all of the wine on a continuum and really kind of say, oh yes, I see the very subtle variation. But again, it was very nice. That was one where we were in more of a wine shop that had a small cava, and she sold a variety of labels of wine. It was a really nice little place.
You also stopped at a place called, or did you stop there? Château de Clos de Vougeot?
That, I think, was the place Bob just spoke of.
Okay.
Vougeot. No, I'm sorry. We stopped and just kind of walked around the vineyard a little bit. I think that was more of a major vineyard, more of a major chateau in town. So it just had beautiful landscapes and beautiful views of the region.
So you just stopped, parked your car, and walked around?
Yes. Yeah.
You guys are turning French. That's great. That's
the best compliment we could receive for the week then.
Because that's exactly what I do. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I stop and I walk in and see what happens.
Yeah, that's kind of how I like to operate.
Yeah.
Just why not?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So you went to a wine sampling at the Caveau des Musigny. I've never heard of that one.
That was a tiny, tiny little shop, and again, that's where we thought, oh well, it's Chambord Musigny. We'll try some here, and I don't think we ended up trying any at that little cava, but and then actually from there we worked our way around the hill to Pernon. I'm just going to butcher it, Annie. I'm so sorry.
Pernon Vergelès. Pernon Vergelès.
And high atop that hill, there is Our Lady of Good Hope, and it has a stunning panorama of the hills where
kind of the whole valley.
Yeah, Côte de Beaune and Côte de Nuit sort of converge, and it was this beautiful vantage.
Yeah, that's kind of a hike that you keep going up and up and up and up and up and up and up, and you think you're never going to reach it, but that's worth it. That is absolutely worth going up to see.
And you have to hoof it.
No. You can take the car, but it's even when you're in the car, it's like it never ends.
Steep, yeah,
it's very steep. Kind of winding a little bit, but really the most amazing view you'll come across.
That's great.
The only thing from a view perspective that was comparable was our cliff picnic.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Yes. So that was kind of the only comparison I could draw between the two.
Well, and so that's the thing that I just really appreciated is that village after village, and perhaps maybe the French take it a bit for granted, but it's these little villages are all built around the craft of winemaking, and it's village after village of 800-900-year-old villages. They're just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Oh, it's got a very stately building there with the beautiful, typical roof, multicolored roof.
And from what I gathered, that's very Burgundian. No, is that a very Burgundy treatment? That glazed tile.
Yes. You find that in the south of Spain as well, but around where I live, all the roofs are red tile roofs. They're not the Burgundian kind of tuile, like a roof tile.
Okay.
They are multicolored, so they will mix some reds and some yellows and some...
Yes.
It's very nice. Oh, wow. This Pernon-Vergelès looks really beautiful. The photos look really great.
Beautiful. It's a steep little village, and it's kind of carved into the side of a hill. Charming. So charming. I wish we could have spent more time there.
I wish I'd talked to you before I went, because that's exactly what I was looking for, and I didn't find it just driving around, I thought for sure, if we drive out of Beaune in any direction, we're going to run into places like this.
Yes.
And we didn't. And we were in a hurry, so we didn't really, we were just there one night. So, yeah, now that I've talked to you, I know where to go. It's great.
Yes. And, well, that's the thing. We look forward to coming back and recreating some of this, but also even maybe going a bit further. And it was just a starting point, I think, for us.
Mm-hmm. All right. So back to Beaune. And that was it. That was the end of your... So did you ever get fabulously drunk while trying all this wine? Or?
I don't think so much on those day excursions because we were driving by car. But that day that we were at Patriarche, for some reason, the tasting, 19 samples in, and then we stopped at a little bar and vin. I think that was we were very very happy that day.
Happy, yes. It was a happy day, yes.
Yes, yeah. Well, there were a couple of days where it's 2:00 in the afternoon and we're on vacation, and there's a bottle of wine in the refrigerator. We might as well.
Why not? You're in France. Yes, behave like a French person.
That's right.
All right. Well, I think we're going to need to wrap it up. We've been talking a long time, but I have to ask you before you go.
Yes.
When you listen to the podcast, what do you do? Are you driving? Are you doing... I don't know. What do you do when you're listening to this podcast?
I usually listen to podcasts as I'm getting ready for work in the morning, as I'm commuting to work back and forth. If I'm in the kitchen, Bob cooks. I don't cook, but if I'm ever in the kitchen, there's always a podcast on. It's my way of absorbing. And I think I mentioned earlier before booking the trip, I pretty much knew nothing about France. And Join Us in France was really my educational journey. And I couldn't be more appreciative of what the podcast afforded me and allowed me to better understand cultural travel tips, places to hit, places to avoid, which I found equally helpful. Just by virtue of listening to the podcast, and I found it outrageously helpful. And
that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Jason was great because he listened to all of them several times, and then he would excerpt specific things for me to listen to. So when we would be in the car going somewhere, he'd say, "Okay, we have to listen to this part because I want you to hear it." So. It was very informative, and I think all of the other guests have been really informative and have brought great perspectives on their trip.
You do really great work.
Oh, thank you. Yes. And how did you find out about it? Did you just Google it and found it that way, or?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and so I just Googled French travel or France travel, and you're the first one that popped up, and I think I quickly absorbed every single podcast very quickly.
You got tired of hearing me.
Oh, no, I can never be tired of hearing you.
He'd be so excited when you released a new one.
Oh, that's great, you guys. Well, thank you so much for giving back, because I'm going to condense this long conversation down to something that will make sense to people. I will remove all my silly asides and try to make it, dense and interesting for people to listen to, because that's the best way to see a country, is when somebody has been and can tell you, go to this place. That place is really cool. So pointed out a lot of great places.
Thank you. Well, and again, I credit a lot of it back to you, as the podcast really kind of informed me of how to even approach scheduling and booking a trip. So it was very helpful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Annie. Have a nice night.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Hi guys, it's Annie again. When you go to joinusinfrance.com, and I hope you do, you will see two important sidebars. The one on the left is there to help you find the information you need. Episodes are categorized by region, for instance, Normandy, Southwest, Paris, Alsace, whatever, but also by show type. There's a category for trip reports, another for transportation, another for food and wine, museums, etc. So if you have an idea what you're looking for but you can't remember the details, you can narrow it down by using the sidebar on the left that says episodes by categories. The sidebar on the right is where you can shop for hotels, car rentals, flights, and earn the show a commission. This is no different than what TripAdvisor does. If you read TripAdvisor reviews and you book a hotel, they get a commission. You pay the same price for that hotel regardless. Well, it's the same for joinusinfrance.com. If you listen to the show and enjoy it, when you are ready to book, go to joinusinfrance.com first, click on those banners on the right of the website, and shop around. This episode is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives International License.